Hello, welcome to the Self Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 7 Mass Media and Communications. And our topic is the beginnings of modern mass media. The first modern mass media institution began with the development of the printing press. Although the history of print in certain societies dates back to many centuries, the first attempts at printing books using modern technologies began in Europe. This technique was first developed by John Gutenberg in 1440. Initial attempts at printing were restricted to religious books. With the Industrial Revolution, the print industry also grew. The first products of the press were restricted to an audience of literate elites. It was only in the mid 19th century, with further development in technologies, transportation, and literacy, that newspapers began to reach out to a mass audience. People living in different corners of the country found themselves reading or hearing the same news. It has been suggested that this was in many ways responsible for people across a country to feel connected and develop a sense of belonging or we feeling. The well known scholar Benedict Anderson has thus argued that this helped the growth of nationalism, the feeling that people who did not even know of each other's existence feel like members of a family. It gave people who would never meet each other a sense of togetherness. Anderson thus suggested that we could think of a nation as an imagined community. You will recall how 19th century social reformers often wrote and debated in newspapers and journals. The growth of Indian nationalism was closely linked to its struggle against colonialism. It emerged in the wake of the institutional changes brought about by the British rule in India. Anti-colonial public opinion was nurtured and channelized by the nationalist press, which was vocal in its opposition to the oppressive measures of the colonial state. This led the colonial government to clamp down on the nationalist press and impose censorship. For instance, during the Ilbert Bill agitation in 1883, association with the national movement led some of the nationalist newspapers like Kesari, Mathrubhumi, Amrit Bazar Patrika to suffer the displeasure of the colonial state. But that did not prevent them from advocating the nationalist cause and demand an end to colonial rule. Under British rule, newspapers and magazine, films and radio comprised the range of mass media. Radio was wholly owned by the state. National views could not be, therefore, expressed. Newspapers and films, though autonomous from the state, were strictly monitored by the Raj. Newspapers and magazines, either in English or vernacular, were not very widely circulated, as the literate public was limited. Yet their influence far outstripped their circulation as news and information was read and spread by word of mouth from commercial and administrative hubs like market and trading centers as well as courts and towns. The print media carried a range of opinion which expressed their ideas of a free India. These variations were carried over to independent India. Now, let us move to the next point, mass media in independent India. The first one is the approach. In independent India, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister, called upon the media to function as the watchdog of democracy. The media was expected to spread the spirit of self reliance and national development among the people. You will recall the general thirst of development in the early years of independence in India from your earlier chapters. The media was seen as a means to inform the people of the various developmental efforts. The media was also encouraged to fight against oppressive social practices like untouchability, child marriages, and ostracism of widows, as well as beliefs of witchcraft and faith healing. A rational scientific ethos was to be promoted for the building of a modern industrial society. The film division of the government produced newsreels and documentaries. These were shown before the screening of films in every movie theatre, documenting the development process as directed by the state. Now, the next topic is radio. Radio broadcasting, which commenced in India through amateur ham broadcasting club in Kolkata and Chennai in the 1920, matured into a public broadcasting system in the 1940s during the World War II, when it became a major instrument of propaganda for Allied forces in the Southeast Asia. At the time of independence, there were only 6 radio stations located in the major cities, catering primarily to an urban audience. By 1950s, there were 5,46,200 radio licenses all over the India. Since the media was seen as an active partner in the development of the newly free nation, the AIR programs consisted mainly of news, current affairs, discussions on development. Apart from All India Radio broadcast news, there was Vivid Bharati, a channel for entertainment that was primarily broadcasting Hindi film songs on listeners' request. In 1957, AIR required the hugely popular channel Vivid Bharati, which soon began to carry sponsored programs and advertisements and grew to become a money spinning channel for AIR. When India gained independence in 1947, All India Radio had an infrastructure of 6 radio stations located in metropolitan cities. The country had 280,000 radio receiver sets for a population of 350 million people. After independence, the government gave priority to the expansion of the radio broadcasting infrastructure, especially in state capitals and in broader areas. Over the years, AIR has developed a formidable infrastructure for radio broadcasting in India. It operates a three-tiered national, regional and local service to cater to the India's geographic, linguistic and cultural diversity. The major constraint for the popularization of radio initially was the cost of the radio set. The transistor revolution in the 1960s made the radio more accessible by making it mobile as battery operated sets and reducing the unit price substantially. In 2000, around 110 million households, two-thirds of all Indian households, were listening to radio broadcasts in 24 languages and 146 dialects. More than a third of them were rural households. Now, the next point is television. Television programming was introduced experimentally in India to promote rural development as early as 1959. Later, the satellite instructional television experiment, broadcasting directly to community viewers in the rural areas of 6 states between August 1975 and July 1976. These instructional broadcasts were broadcast to 2,400 TV sets directly for 4 hours daily. Meanwhile, the television stations were set up under Doordarshan in 4 cities: Delhi, Mumbai, Srinagar, and Amritsar by 1975. Three more stations in Kolkata, Chennai, and Jalandhar were added within a year. Every broadcasting center had its own mix of programs comprising news, children's, and women's programs, farmers' programs, as well as entertainment programs. As programs became commercialized and were allowed to carry advertisements of its sponsors, a shift in target audience was evident. Entertainment programs grew and were directed to the urban consuming class. The advent of color broadcasting during the 1982 Asian Games in Delhi and the rapid expansion of the national network led to rapid commercialization of television broadcasting. During 1984-85, the number of television transmitters increased all over the India, covering a large population of the population. It was also the time when indigenous soap operas like Hum Log and Bunyad were aired. They were hugely popular acclaim and attracted substantial advertising revenue for Doordarshan, as did the broadcasting of the epic Ramayana 1987 to 88 and Mahabharata 1988 to 90. Now let us move to the next point, print media. The beginnings of the print media and its role in both the spread of the social reform movement and the nationalist movement have been noted. After independence, the print media continued to share the general approach of being a partner in the task of national building by taking up developmental issues as well as giving voice to the widest section of people. The brief extract will give you a sense of the commitment. A gravest challenge that the media faced was with the declaration of emergency in 1975 and censorship of the media. Fortunately, the period ended and democracy was restored in 1977. India, with its many problems, can be justifiably proud of a free media. At the start of the chapter, we had mentioned how mass media is different from other means of communication as it requires a formal structural organization to meet large scale capital production and management demands. And also, like any other social institution, the mass media also varies in structure and content according to different economic, political, and socio cultural context. You will now notice how, at different points in time, both the content and style of media changes. At some points, the state has a greater role to play, at other times, the market does. In India, this shift is very visible in recent times. This change has also led to debates about what role the media ought to play in a modern democracy. We look at these new developments in the next section. Now, let us wind up the session and thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning Podcast.